So I started thinking today about the word equilibrium. I think people falsely think equilibrium is about being at rest, balanced, and completely at rest. And that's not true. Equilibrium is actually very active. So the concept is interesting. So in order to, explain it, let me walk you through an analogy. Now imagine you're floating in a perfectly square pool of water. So you're just floating there, perfectly square, and you're not moving at all. And imagine now that each four sides of the pool has some like whirlpool or some force that's pulling the contents of the pool towards that side. So each side is equally powered, meaning they have each side of the pool is pulling you in each direction. Now, if you were to start to float to one side or the other, you would start to get pulled to that side. But if you're in the middle of the pool, then all four sides are equally pulling against you, and you would therefore stay floating right in the middle. That is what we call equilibrium. Now, this would be an example of static equilibrium, where you were not actually requiring any effort. You just have to stay floating right in that middle spot. And because all four sides are powered equally, you will be in a state of static equilibrium. Now, this is a great analogy for life. Now, you'll never find in life all four sides being powered equally. There will always be various strengths of anything pulling you in life. And so consequently, we're never in a state of static equilibrium. We're in a state of dynamic equilibrium, where we have to be constantly moving between these forces in order to stay in the middle so that we're not incorrectly pulled to one side or the other. Now, the Japanese came up with this concept. A Japanese philosophy is about what they call Ikigai. You've probably heard or seen it. There's images on the internet that you can find. But just imagine that in this pool that you're floating in, on let's say on your right side, there's a force that's pulling you, and this force is what the world needs, what people need and want. That would be the right side, and on the left side is what you're good at. So what you're good at and what people need. Now, if you found a perfect world where what you were good at is what people needed, then you would be more in the middle of the pool, if that makes sense. But if you focused way too much on what you're good at, but not on what people need, then you'll be really satisfied with what you're doing. You'll be really happy with what you're doing. But you'll feel kind of useless because nobody will want it. But if you focus on too much on what people need and not on what you're good at, then you will have a sense that excitement because you're doing something that's very popular. But then you will constantly feel uncertain and unsure of yourself because you're just not that good at it. So those are two forces that are constantly pulling against you. Now, there's other forces at play too. This is the top and bottom of the pool that you're floating in. One of those forces is what you love to do. And then the other force is what you could actually get paid to do. And these work against you as well. So if you do something that you really love to do, hey, you will feel a sense of fulfillment. You will just feel like this is good for me. Problem is you'll have no opportunity to make money or even build wealth. And in fact, it may become so bad that you can no longer do what you love because you need to make money. So doing what you love, now, perfect balance is you find something you love to do that you can get paid for. And then you get to more in the middle of those two things, if that makes sense. Consequently, if you focus on something that you get paid for and you don't love it at all, well, that's You'll be satisfied. You'll have what you need. You'll be I should say you'll be comfortable, but you'll feel empty inside because you're not doing what you love. So these forces are pulling against you, and not always at the same strength. Sometimes you're doing okay financially, so the paid thing is not such a big deal. Sometimes you're really struggling financially, so the paid thing is really pulling you. So it just depends on where you're at in your life. So that's why you're always in a dynamic state of equilibrium. The point of Ikigai is to find out your reason for being. The reason that you exist. Right? Your raison d'être, or whatever the French word, however you pronounce it. My daughter would tell me how to pronounce the word, but it's your reason for existence. If you're lucky enough to find that, you will know you have found your reason for existence when all four of those forces are satisfied by what you've picked to do. And then you will find yourself in this state of dynamic equilibrium. Now, I would argue that if you find such a thing and you discover what that is, then you should abandon everything else and make that your focus in life, because that will give you the most fulfillment and allow you to stay in a state of equilibrium. The greatest chance of staying in a state of equilibrium will happen when you're doing what you are supposed to do. So anyway, that's an interesting concept, interesting analogy. Just remember, equilibrium is not static. It's not at rest. It's something that's constantly dynamic.